Okay, welcome to the next unboxing, really, or unbagging, I guess it would be. These aren't really wrapped in anything. I bought these at a local show. Um, but this first car is the Policar uh, F1 from the early 70s. This was the beginning of the wing era of F1. So they hadn't grown the giant wings and tires and air boxes of the mid 70s yet. This is more 70, 71 era. This particular car, driven by Jean-Paul Jarier. Slider out of the sleeve here. A little easier said than done. Alright, here she comes. Wow. Man, things are tight. Okay, here we go. This is the March 701, driven at Monza, Italy, 1971. Jean-Pierre Jarier. And there's the actual car. These are very, very nice looking models. I mean, I've yet to get a chance to actually run these on the track in anger yet, but they are really, really nice looking cars. And it's amazing the difference in the size that these cars grew to later on. And I got a couple other F1s from a little bit later back, and I can show you the difference in the size. Okay, now this car here, the Brabham, and you can see how the wings have grown. The car is overall longer. The wheelbase is a little bit longer on this car, but you can see the little bit of the difference in the two, and that's just a difference of maybe four years. So let's get this one off the plinth. All right, there we go. So there we are. There's Jean-Pierre in all his glory. This was at the very beginning of his career. French driver. He wound up later on driving for the U.S. UOP Shadow Team for a few seasons, and then banged around as like a journeyman driver. But you can see these cars have pretty good detail. I mean, they have 4-link suspension. Pretty nice detail at the back of the car with the engine, transaxles. Interior is pretty basic. I mean, it's just a driver and a steering wheel. But you can see how these cars, think about this for a minute. These cars weren't much more than a glorified go-kart. I mean, and these guys would go hammers in hell in these cars. So the fact that these guys were that brave to go like hell. Looks like I'm going to have to glue that back on. That's actually loose. Yeah, oh, that's something I can do. It might just press back in and snap in place. Looks like it's going to need a little bit of glue. That's no big deal. These things are, like I said, this is going to be raced. It's not going to be a shelf queen. Nothing wrong with that, but I will run these cars at some point. I've been gathering cars and gathering cars and gathering cars. So at some point, it'll get its chance to sail around my track. I have a little scale 1/4 mile road course, and it's just behind this backdrop here. So on one of these days I'll get a chance and I'll do a walk around once I clean the basement up a little bit so it doesn't look like a complete pig pen. But there's the look. And you can see a nice detail. They even have the wheels with two-tone gold spokes and the aluminum rim, the blue streak Goodyear tires. I mean, it's a lot of detail for a slot car. I mean, in my opinion, this is the kind of detail you expect to see in a diecast. So they've come a long way from the day of the old AFX that I ran when I was a teenager. So that's car number 1 in this collection. Bring out number 2. All right. Number 2. This is a Pioneer Mustang. This is a looks like a 1967 Mustang by the looks of it. It doesn't have the side markers. I'm not exactly sure what they got going on with the side strakes here, because behind the door, if that was a 67, that would have two mini fluke style, for my Australian friends, fluke style add-ons that they put on there as trim on the cars. So nice looking detail to these. Let's see if I can get this open. Get it off the plinth. This one's going to take a screwdriver. Excuse my reach. Okay. Now this is done up in the Terralinga racing team, which was Carroll Shelby. Now I don't know that this car actually ever raced in this color scheme. It looks very similar. It does have a name on there of a John Atwell, so it may have actually been a real race car in the Trans Am. That series, what they called the Golden Age, ran from 1966 to 1972. The Mustangs in 67 had a knockdown, drag-out battle with their corporate cousins, the Cougar team, run by Bud Moore, with his main drivers of being Dan Gurney and Parnelli Jones. A couple other drivers substituted when those guys weren't available, and they did fairly well. And the Mustang team with Jerry Titus pulled out the championship on the very last race by about, I think, 2 points, if I remember right, over the Cougar team. And then Ford decided, hey, it's not very bright to spend all this money to beat ourselves. And they had bigger problems on the horizon anyway, because the Camaro team of Penske and Donahue were starting to get their feet towards the end of that season, and wound up in the 68 season that this body style would have also raced in, and just absolutely devastated the field, like winning 13 out of, I forget, 10 out of 13 races, I believe, and I forget how many in a row, but they just made a shambles of that 68 season. So, and the last one in this bag is also a Pioneer. I don't know if I mentioned the last, but these both are, the Mustang and this Camaro, were Pioneer slot cars. These are the first Pioneers I've gotten, and these are really, really nice. I mean, you know, they have nice box art. They're well detailed. This is the Camaro number 23 of Dwayne Winkle. Never heard of the man. Sorry if I can't say I ever heard of you. Apologies to his families and friends. But that was a little bit before I was able to really pay attention to most motor racing. I was just starting to get my... wow, this case is really tight. There we go. Really getting it together in that 67, 68 period. I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I was just getting into my first Hot Wheels. So I didn't get to see, unfortunately, back then you didn't have the ability to have 1,000 channels on the television, and auto racing was probably even less televised than it is even today. I mean, today you got every race is televised. Back then you were lucky to get a 15-minute segment of auto racing on the wide world of sports at the very best. That was where I saw Can-Am. That's where I saw NASCAR. That's where I saw IndyCar, Formula One. Was you got 15-minute snippets months after the races were over, and that was how you got your racing back in the day. So, I mean, you say we're spoiled today with the amount of exposure, even though it doesn't seem like you get as much as the other sports, with stick and ball sports, but it is what it is. More channels, there's more programming needed, and auto racing finally got a chance to shine a little bit. But yeah, there's that. These are really, really nicely detailed. Good looking cars too. I mean, the proportions look really well. I mean, they look fairly accurate. I've seen some that you kind of wonder exactly how close they are to the real car in scale. These I would have to take and measure, but overall they look pretty damn good. And these aren't real expensive cars. I get a chance to run them on the track, but from other reviewers and other channels on YouTube with guys that have run these, they seem to really like them. So I'll be happy to see what they do when I actually get a chance to unleash these myself. And the Sidewinder motor, you can see the gear here. So this is a basic setup. This is how most of them are. It's got the door underneath, so you can chip these to run digital. I run analog. I'm too old to try to learn new tricks, I guess, and mostly I just race for myself. I race against a clock, so I don't need to be able to switch lanes and all that good stuff. I mean, it's wild to watch these guys run. On digital tracks, you can run, I believe, up to 6 cars at a time on a 2-lane track, and you can switch lanes past. They got pits, and you come in and simulate pit stops. As if you were taking on gas and tires, and then they tell you can go and you can rejoin the track, and it adds to the racing experience. I mean, for me, I'm just basically time trialing. I don't race against anybody anymore. One of my best friends, Dean, who was into the hobby with me, unfortunately passed away from pancreatic cancer. And with that, pretty much any competition that I had went with him, and I missed the hell out of him. I wish he was still here. He was a great guy. But anyway, that's the Camaro from Pioneer, the Mustang from Pioneer, and the March from Policar. And I'll catch you in the next video.